on the great colour card of politics, with the Tories being blue and the Labour Party being red, and, well, in the UK it went for purple and green. But, you know, this is a magnolia party. And the people who should be hanging their heads in shame is not actually the Tory party or the Labour Party, but the Lib Dems. Because when you talk about centrist politics, what does that really mean? All they're going to do is clip and nip little bits from other parties and stick them together in this ill-fashioned blob of a party.
Yeah. Well, what it used to mean, of course, what it used to mean, and maybe will again, but what it used to mean was that you don't have a communist state where the state owns and runs everything, nor do you have a completely free market state where nothing is run and owned by the state, but you have some bits that are owned and run by the state and some bits that aren't. That's classically what it sort of meant. Now, of course, things have, in economic terms, shifted so far to the right that we probably wouldn't want to go back to a classically mixed economy, a sort of 50-50 model. I mean, that's kind of what Jeremy Corbyn is proposing. That doesn't feel centrist.
Well, interestingly, Darren, and I don't say this against my Tory friends, because I have a number of Tory friends who I completely respect for their views. But to me, your thumbnail sketch there is one working model, but another working model is perhaps this, that the Tory party is about starting with the selfhood, self-ownership, ownership of things, ownership of places, ownership of homes, and broadening out society from that point. Whereas I always think the socialists are that. They are mindful that we live in a society, and that a society isn't made up of one person or one family, but the interconnectedness of things. Now, I don't really see that there's a middle way between those two positions. Each of those positions, in my view, is equally valid.
And you're retarded.
In many, many ways. But they require of the individual a different ideological position. So it really divide between the self and the society, at least things emanating from Parliament which are to the benefit of the individual or to the benefit of society.
There are
it's almost impossible, I would have thought.
There are other sort of interesting, fascinating, sort of philosophically interesting contradictions. I mean, the Conservatives, until, well, I mean, they were defending Clause 28 or Section 28 right up until the end of the 20th century. The party that brought in this ridiculously, absurdly homophobic piece of legislation within 10 years were legislating for gay marriage. And actually, the Conservative position, if you believe in liberty and you believe in people having the right to do what they want, the Conservative position should always have been in presumption of letting people get on with their lives and be whatever they happen to be. And yet, for such a long time, the Conservative position was deliberately homophobic. There's a fascinating contradiction there.
It is, Darren, except that if I remember this correctly, you'll know this. Am I right in believing that David Cameron never put gay marriage in the manner, something that he sort of floated after he got into Parliament? The Tory party is going down and down in its numbers.
It's thought to be. They don't publish their numbers, but the best estimates are that they are indeed starting from a pretty small base and falling even further.
Yes, and I think this is partly because they don't appeal to young people. And one of the weird things about Corbyn is that he does appeal to young people, very much so. Whether this is because they feel that he's always been a bit of a rebel, which he has in his voting history in Parliament, or whether it's because they feel he's a sort of granddad figure they can trust, I have no idea really. But it's important, it's very important, that if there's one thing the referendum did, it was to energize people into voting in numbers that they'd never voted before across the board. If there's one thing the referendum didn't do, it was bring out the younger vote in enough numbers
To change the result.
Now, I say that as a Brexiteer, as you know.
Yes.
And so I'm all... and I'm also in a very difficult position over this alleged and probably true anti-Semitism within a certain faction of the party, which I find unbelievably distasteful. Now,
what really hurt, I mean, as someone who's instinctively a Labour supporter and former member, what really hurts me about the anti-Semitism scandal is that I always thought, and since I was a child, Labour is the party of not being bigoted. Labour is the party that opposes all the bigotry. Labour is the party that opposes the idea that you discriminate against someone because of where they come from, what their background is, or what their religion is. And it sort of horrifies me to realise that might not be as true as I would have liked it to be.
Well, it's certainly true for me. As an individual, that's what I believe in the Labour Party without that taint. But I think the problem that we all have at the moment is that Brexit has divided loyalties. It has divided the Labour Party, the Tory Party. We know it's just the most divisive thing.
And to have Theresa May as the person going around the country saying, "I shall unite you," I mean, it's comical. If it weren't so desperately serious, then we'd all be able to sit back and have a good laugh at it, I think. Christine, thank you for that. The news approaches. Taff is in Barry, though. On the other side of it, LBC News Time is 3:31. The headlines come from Zora Suleiman.
An emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council will take place today in response to reports of a poison gas attack in Syria. It's reported dozens of people, including women and children, died in the attack. Meanwhile, several people have been killed after an airstrike on a military airbase in the country. An airfield near the central city of Homs was hit with missiles in the early hours. State media says air defense has shot down 8 missiles and blamed America. The US has denied the attack. A leaked Home Office document says the cut in police numbers have likely contributed to a rise in serious violent crime. Yesterday, the Home Secretary Amber Rudd denied that was the case. The document suggests offenders may have been encouraged by the lack of police resources and the fall in charge rates. The government will launch their serious violence strategy later to tackle violent crime. And in the US Masters, America's Patrick Reed has won the competition by 1 shot from compatriot Ricky Fowler. LBC weather: rain for much of central, southern and eastern England through the night, mostly dry elsewhere with some fog patches, lows of 4 degrees.
This is LBC. Do you own fine wines? Then have your collection valued by the experts at the London Wine Cellar. Whether you're looking to sell that special bottle that's been tucked away, a large investment portfolio, or to restructure your cellar, we're here to help. We'll buy your wines hassle-free with a nationwide collection service and immediate payment terms. So whether you're looking to sell your collection or just find out what it might be worth, talk to the specialists at thelondonwinecellar.com.
If you're looking for credit, go to checkocean.co.uk and see in seconds if you'll be accepted for an Ocean credit card before you apply. Checking doesn't affect your credit rating, and with a credit limit of up to 1,500 quid, it's a no-brainer. Go to checkocean.co.uk right now and get an answer in seconds. 39.9% APR representative variable. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One is the exclusive lender.
It's time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. With stunning HD video, crisp audio, and instant wireless sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
With Clearabee, getting rid of rubbish is quick, easy and affordable.
Clear rubbish easily. Clearabee.
Darren Adam on LBC.
03456060973. James, and we'll get to Taff and Barry in a second, but James says on this new party idea, the new political party that is being developed by a bunch of very rich people to break the Westminster mould. Never happened. James says, a new party, a fresh start, Darren? Absolutely. I am completely partyless now. If we can get you and Ian Collins on board and Steve Allen as Justice Secretary, I'll be ready to tick the box. What say you, says James. I've never considered that before. Political party consisting of me, Ian Collins and Steve Allen. Well, I'll tell you what, if Steve's going to be Justice Secretary, I want to be Transport Secretary. So I can get rid of road pricing and the congestion charge and build new roads everywhere. Can we do that? I don't know what Ian's going to do. If I'm Transport Secretary and Steve is Justice Secretary, then maybe Ian will have to be Prime Minister. Taff's in Barry. Hello, Taff.
Good morning, Don.
Hi, Big Taff. What do you make of this intention to basically start again?
Well, I was around when the SDP and the Gang of Four broke away, etc. I was pretty cynical then. I'm much more so now. Any sort of revolution, be it political or social, it raises a dust storm. Should the status quo look to be threatened in any way, those with the real power simply change coats and come out as leaders of the next lot. It might be a great idea for a while. It may stabilise what's going on, the cosy little bipartisan state we've got at the moment. It'll change nothing. You're trying to establish something and everything costs money. It'll change things, but not for any length of time.
I mean, at an election, if you had 50 million quid in the bank, then you could spend up to the limits straight away on that. You wouldn't have to worry about raising it, for one thing.
Oh, yeah.
You have it to spend.
It would give it a head start, but when you think about you're going to start off, you've got to build an infrastructure, you've got to build a public image, you've got to get airtime, you've got to advertise, you've got to have consultants. Whether we like it or not, the system is built that everything is predicated on your wallet. It doesn't have any outstanding moral compass. No. I don't think. Good luck to them. I see that's a good idea, but it's almost like a single issue party. It'll make a storm.
Well, what would that issue be, though? What would be this if they were a single issue party? What? say, the local hospital, it had been a Labour seat. A doctor took to the ballot box, stood as an independent, well, stood under the flag of the Kidderminster Health Concern Party, and won election on 2 occasions. So it can be done. It's possible to overcome the apparent barriers / protections of first past the post in a number of places, but it's been historically difficult to do it in big enough numbers to actually make a difference. The other sort of big sea change, which in my view thankfully has been largely reversed, was that astonishing wave in Scotland a couple of elections ago, 2015, when the SNP ended up winning 56 out of 59 seats. Now, thankfully, in my view, that was reversed in 2017 when they fell back down to 35. But so this is the example I always give when people say, oh, first past the post, it just leads to safe seats, it just leads to parties getting stuck into a constituency and having a job for life. Well, I mean, tell that to the 40 Labour MPs in Scotland who lost their seats to the separatists in 2015. Gordon Brown's old constituency in deepest, reddest Fife went to the SNP. Gone back now, of course, but the idea that these seats where Labour MPs were sitting on majorities of 15, 18, 20,000 were anything other than entirely safe would have been preposterous, and yet they weren't safe at all. So I think the idea of the safe seat is disappearing as well. I think it's becoming more possible for other ideas, other parties to break through, whether there's merit in that or otherwise, is a different question. Yoga in Wimbledon. Morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, I hope you are too. What do you make of the plans then for this new rich centrist party?
Well, I think the whole system of elections and the whole system of voting relies upon, I suppose, at least the received wisdom of the ignorance and the gullibility of the voter. Not to say that they're stupid, it's just that none of us know very much about anything or anyone whom we're electing. We don't know anything about them.
Whose fault is that, though? Is that the fault of the parties or the fault of us for not doing our research?
Well, I think for both. I think that all of us, not all of us, but most of us manipulated.
I think education should be involved in politics, to be honest with you.
Russell Brand saying I don't vote. I think that's also not a wise thing to do. I don't vote because I don't trust any of them. And I think it's not the right way to go about it. I think we're each manipulated. And manipulated possibly by the rich and powerful with vested interests. And many, which is how Blair, for example, came into power, Thatcher came into power, that we each believe that we're all going to be better off. But better off again, that notion of single versus society, how it'll benefit us, and as opposed to how it'll benefit society. Each of us, of course, while sitting on the jury or becoming magistrates, each of us say, well, it's for the betterment of society. Well, at the same time saying, well, I don't want this guy or woman around because I don't want my child to meet them, so therefore it will benefit me. I suppose we're each selfish because we want to all survive and feel comfortable. But also, I don't think. Rather most of us want to believe that we live in a society rather than an individual type of it's a philosophical thing.
Do you think that's true, though? I think a lot of people are quite selfish and have perhaps felt free to become selfish in recent years. And that's fine, that's their choice, but...
That's entirely true. That is entirely true. That I think that most people are selfish. But it's a degree of selfishness, whether they... but again, the term selfishness is subjective, because of what is selfishness. So, are we so selfish as to believe that we believe that as John Donne said, no man is an island entire of itself.
Unless his name is Lewis.
Sorry?
Unless his name is Lewis. Sorry, it's a joke. Never mind.
That's I don't know my head, I was not aware of it.
Yeah, well, they always said if you've got to explain a joke, it probably wasn't worth making in the first place. So I'm going to hold my hands up to that.
Yeah, I'm sure you were referring to something that I'm not familiar with. The thing about services is a strange concept because, of course, we are all selfishness, but we all want to. I'm a Labour supporter, and I come from a real affluent family. My father was a chiropractic surgeon, and all of that. I can go into all of it. I went to Balliol College, Oxford, and all of that sort of thing. But notwithstanding all of it, I think we need to, each of us, I think, take a step back and see, what we are actually, or who we're electing, and therefore what it is that we want out of the system. And I think for far too long, the notion of success has been associated with financial well-being, financial sort of aspiration. I'm not decrying that. I'm denigrating that. I think it is sadly it has become important, but I think for most people that has become the measure of success, and therefore when we all, well, most of us, not I, aspire to it, it becomes that sort of benchmark upon which that everyone goes by, and society, and therefore for political parties, it's easy to exploit that and say, we'll give you a better life.
And I think as well, when it comes to new parties, I mean, there's not been a hugely successful tradition of new parties in this country. What seems to work more successfully for people who want to change things is it's basically infiltration, isn't it? Without going all Trotsky at this point, you're far more likely to have success in achieving your aims by getting involved with an existing party and changing what they stand for. I mean, if Jeremy Corbyn, for example, had tried to prosper and thrive from not within the Labour Party, I think he would have found it completely impossible to get to the position that he's now in as leader of the opposition. Let's go back to the 80s. Dave Nellist, who used to be in the Labour Party and was expelled and ran in Coventry in the election in '87, didn't win the seat and was never a national figure once again. Now, if Jeremy Corbyn had left the Labour Party in '87 or been expelled, not that he'd done anything which would have led to his expulsion, of course, I'm not saying that, but I think that's the position that he would now be in. He wouldn't be leader of the opposition, for example. 0345 6060 973 is my number. Yoga, thank you for that call. Got some texts and tweets from you in just a few moments, and then we'll take a look at the front pages of the papers as well. It's 13 minutes to 4.
This is LBC. It's time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. With stunning HD video, crisp audio, and instant wireless sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
Do you own fine wines? Then have your collection valued by the experts at the London Wine Cellar. Whether you're looking to sell that special bottle that's been tucked away, a large investment portfolio, or to restructure your cellar, we're here to help. We'll buy your wines hassle-free with a nationwide collection service and immediate payment terms. So whether you're looking to sell your collection or just find out what it might be worth, talk to the specialists at thelondonwinecellar.com.
If you're looking for credit, go to checkocean.co.uk and see in seconds if you'll be accepted for an Ocean credit card before you apply. Checking doesn't affect your credit rating, and with a credit limit of up to 1,500 quid, it's a no-brainer. Go to checkocean.co.uk right now and get an answer in seconds. 39.9% APR represented variable. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One is the exclusive lender.
Checkocean.co.uk.
This is LBC with Darren Adam. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
This is Stan, who says, hi Darren, there's a much simpler way to reflect public opinion in Parliament, to adopt proportional representation. Does that reflect public opinion though, Stan? I'm not certain that it does, because if we take the 2010 election as an example, which of course was fought under first past the post, but it produced the kind of result that you would see all the time. Under proportional representation, the first party and the third party went into power together. Now, who voted for that? Who voted for a coalition between the Conservatives and the Lib Dems? Nobody. Literally nobody. Because it wasn't on any ballot paper. And that, of course, was under the system that I favour, which is first past the post. But the point is, first past the post usually protects us against that kind of result. PR would give us that sort of result all the time. And so you'd end up with politicians deciding what sort of government they want after the election, not before the election, when we as the voters have got a chance to decide what sort of government we actually want. They get together afterwards. And you remember in the aftermath of that election, with the politicians all getting together in secret and meetings between various factions of various parties to decide what kind of government we were going to have. Well, hang on, can we not decide that because we're the electors? And can that decision not be made in advance of the election when we make the decision rather than afterwards? So I'm not certain that proportional representation does reflect public opinion, Stan, in anything other than a very vague way. And it doesn't truly reflect what anybody wants. I mean, unless you've got electoral pacts, unless, you know, for example, the Conservatives and the Lib Dems go into the election saying, if you vote for us, you're also voting for the other, and we'll form a coalition if we win. Can you imagine them saying that? They didn't even do it in 2015.